Oda may have just confirmed that Imu is the Sea Devil, and now everything else is lining up. The legend of Davy D. Jones, the role and powers of the ancient weapons, Shanks' plans to thwart Imu, how Luffy fits into the centuries-old war. All because Imu is a Sea Devil who plans to completely sink the world. There's been a long-held speculation that Imu may be a sea god, and the more information we learn about Imu, their powers, and the structure via which they rule the world, it's seeming more and more the case that Imu may really be a sea god, or really, the Sea Devil. For example, Imu spelt backwards is Umi, which means sea in Japanese. And then more recently, One Piece chapter 1167 revealed a ranking system within the Holy Knights that has only added further fuel to this whole idea. There are 3 tiers within the Holy Knights: the shallow sea, the deep sea, and the deep, deep sea. A very heavy sea theme is clearly going on, which I find a very interesting, intentional choice, considering that the Holy Knights alongside the rest of the Celestial Dragons are based up above in Marijois, very much far removed from the sea. So this has gotten me thinking about Imu and the sea god theory once again, especially because of another intriguing detail from the series when Rox explained who Imu was. In chapter 1162, when Whitebeard asks, "Who the heck is that?" Rox calls Imu the world, and the way I interpret this comment is that Imu is the primordial being. Imu existed before anything else existed. Imu is the beginning creature or a primordial force, which I've discussed further in another video of mine. But when we think about primordial forces, about the beginning of the world, I'm reminded of a scientific discovery in our own real world, which is that our Earth may have actually originally been a water world. Around 3 billion years ago, the Earth may have been completely covered by a global ocean. And knowing how much Oda likes to pull from real-life history and myths, Imu being referred to as the world makes me think of Imu representing this primordial global ocean of our own real world. That Imu was the sea covering the entire planet until evolution led to the birth of landmass, creatures, and eventually people. After all, the planet that One Piece is set in is called the Blue Planet, a reference to how much of it is covered by water. And we have to remember that the concept of a sea god or sea devil goes much further back in the series history. Much earlier, in fact, almost at the very beginning. As early as chapter 19, an early hint about the potential origins of the devil fruit was that they are enchanted by a sea devil. And although that speculation is presented as only a theory as to how devil fruits came about, it is worth noting that the person who shared that speculation with us was none other than Shanks, a very important character who clearly knows a lot about the world. But then in chapter 1069, according to Vegapunk, the genius scientist's theory as to how devil fruits were created is that they are manifestations of people's dreams for the future, which at first doesn't seem to align with the theory that Shanks shared, but when you think about it, it does all kind of make sense when you put it together. The biggest drawback to a devil fruit is that it strips away the ability of the devil fruit user to swim. Seawater is the natural counter to a devil fruit. It acts as a power balancing system. Because you've gained extraordinary supernatural powers, you must also be nerfed in some way. And if devil fruits are man-made, as theorized by Vegapunk, and then tie in this sea devil enchantment or curse idea from Shanks, it's as if the counter to a devil fruit power was designed by natural forces, its nature fighting back. If Imu is the primordial sea who predates humans, once humans developed supernatural abilities that would tilt the balance away from the natural order, Imu fought back, cursing those with devil fruits to lose their ability to swim so that at least in that regard, Imu could control them. And if we're talking curses with links to the sea, there's also the legend of Davy D. Jones, who has returned to the series as a key figure closely tied to all of the world's lore. When we were first introduced to the Davy Jones legend in the Long Ring Longland arc, we were told that he was a man cursed by a demon to live on the sea floor. And now that we've also seen Imu being presented as a demonic figure, and additionally someone who has a vendetta against the Davy D family, a personal hatred of Davy D. Jones, this idea of Davy Jones being cursed to live on the sea floor, that to me reads like Imu trapping Davy Jones in the depths of their domain. And I'm getting more and more convinced that Imu really is the Sea Devil, not just the final villain who was introduced post-time skip, but a central figure or force who has been critical to the series since the very first chapter. So now that we've established why Imu may be the Sea Devil, let's turn to what Imu's end goal is. Imu wants to flood the world, to sink it so that the entire world falls back under their complete complete control. In chapter 1113, Vegapunk revealed to the world that the entire world is slowly sinking, and that this isn't even the first time this has happened. During the Void Century, sea levels rose by a whopping 200 meters, and this was no accident or natural disaster. This was the result of the use of ancient weapons. Vegapunk explains that the only way that the world government could have erased an entire century of history is because the world physically changed. Landmass was destroyed, continents disappeared. The world map was completely rewritten. If the world had stayed the same as it used to be, hiding 100 years of history would have been impossible. And now, Imu and the world government continue to pursue this. Something that Vegapunk confirms by studying the aftermath of the attack on Lulusia, which has similarly caused the rise in sea levels. This impending doom of rising sea levels isn't just a side effect of a massive war. It now seems like this is actually Imu's goal, to flood the entire world. Because for a sea devil, a world with less land and more ocean doesn't just only bury information or bury history, it expands Imu's domain. More water means more reach, more ocean means more influence, fewer islands mean fewer places where the sea can't touch you, where it doesn't have control. It means fewer devil fruit users who will be able to fight against Imu because they're rendered powerless due to the sea. It's as if Imu is building a perfect battlefield where they have the greatest advantage. Every vanished island is another piece of land taken off the board. Every rise in sea level shrinks the space where Imu is weak and expands the domain where Imu is strongest. And if this is Imu's master plan, then it also starts to explain the actions of other key figures. One person whose actions makes the most sense in this context, the one person who behaves like he already understands the kind of enemy Imu is Shanks. If Imu really is turning the world into water, then Shanks is the character who is acting like someone who already knows what the final battlefield will look like. After finally getting a glimpse of Shanks' time in Marijoa as a holy knight in chapter 1167, his entire pirate story suddenly fits with this idea of a world sinking into the sea. Being a part of the Roger Pirates and possibly knowing what the world is heading towards becomes even more meaningful when you add the fact that he actually spent time inside Marijoa itself. And while he was there, he was clearly gathering information. During that period, Shanks would have likely discovered more about Imu than almost anyone else alive. Outside of the Gorosei and the upper ranks of the Holy Knights, and I guess now Sabo and Wapol, Shanks might be the only living person who has actually seen Imu, and that could have given him insight into the kind of end goal that Imu has planned, which then puts a whole new lens on the formation of the Red Hair Pirates. Because Shanks didn't just become a Yonko with any pirate crew, he formed the only top-tier pirate crew in the entire series with 0 devil fruit users. At first that might have seemed like a fun narrative quirk, a way to highlight Haki mastery and to give Shanks' crew a unique identity, but once we consider the possibility that Imu is tied to the sea itself, Imu is the sea devil, the sea god, the embodiment of the thing that nullifies devil fruits, suddenly that decision doesn't feel random at all. It feels like preparation for an upcoming battle. If the world is slowly being turned into a global ocean, if islands are vanishing, if the sea level is rising, then the Red Hair Pirates are the only crew protected from that shift. The Red Hair Pirates are a crew that can't be drowned, a crew that doesn't lose its strength the moment they touch seawater, a crew that stays at full power even if the battlefield floods, a crew designed to function in exactly the type of environment that Imu is pushing the world towards. So that may explain the benefits of not having a devil fruit so that you don't succumb to seawater vulnerability. But in that case, why is Imu so scared of Joy Boy? Well, that's where Luffy and the Nika devil fruit comes in. Luffy is one of the only people in the entire series whose power has already been shown to affect the ocean itself. We've seen this in Egghead. Under the effects of the Nika devil fruit, the ocean can become bouncy. Marine ships appear to bounce above the water. This is something we fans were questioning whether this really happened when we were reading the manga, and then the anime recently made this moment even clearer by extending the scene, emphasizing that Luffy's power isn't only affecting his own body, but the environment around him, including the sea itself. And this detail feels huge when you place it next to everything that Imu is doing. If Imu is plunging the world underwater, Luffy is the one person who makes that water safe. He can transform its liquid quality into something more solid so that people don't drown. Luffy's the one person who can rewrite the expanding domain that Imu is trying to create. His ability to change the nature nature of the ocean means that he can counter Imu's control over the battlefield. That's what makes Luffy and his Nika devil fruit so threatening for Imu. And in this context of a battlefield being the ocean itself, this also recontextualizes the ancient weapons that have been a core mystery throughout the series. As Vegapunk questioned in chapter 1115, why would Joy Boy preserve something as dangerous as the ancient weapons? Why would he pass down these weapons of mass destruction capable of ending the world into the future? It's enough to make Vegapunk question, who is the true evil here? Who will fight the good fight? But think about it this way, the ancient weapons matter not because they destroy things, not because they blow things up, but because they perfectly match and they perfectly counter the type of battlefield that Imu is shaping. If Imu is turning the entire planet into ocean, then the ancient weapons might exist to survive that world, to counter it, or to give the final alliance a way to fight back on a battlefield where land is disappearing. Let's start with Poseidon. Sea Kings were initially introduced as a fun world-building feature, but their strength hasn't been all that impressive in the grand scheme of things. The Lord of the Coast is easily defeated by Luffy as the first barrier to his pirate journey. They haven't felt like the sort of monsters that could shape the future of the world in a world full of more powerful, fearsome figures and creatures. But we've also seen the enormous, ancient, intelligent Sea Kings, strong enough to move a ship the size of a city. The Calm Belt is famous for Sea Kings so dangerous that people avoid it entirely. We've only scratched the surface of the role that Sea Kings can play, and now imagine a completely different battlefield. Within the idea of the world sinking, Shirahoshi's ability to control these Sea Kings becomes far more crucial. Shirahoshi becomes the leader of a massive army who's fighting on home ground. If Imu's goal is to flood the world to restrict the power of people, Shirahoshi, and therefore as an extension, Luffy, has an entire army of capable sea creatures on their side. Poseidon is the one power that can contest a world ruled by the ocean. If Imu's strength grows as the sea spreads, then Poseidon is the natural counterweight. Her power isn't about destruction, it's about influence. Who the kings of the ocean will listen to? Imu or the mermaid princess? The sea devil or the sea god? This is actually something really intriguing because I think it's possible that we do in fact have both a sea devil and a sea god in the series. The Harley text mentions the sea god stormed at the end of the Second World, which I think is a reference to the world flooding during the Void Century, but it does raise the question, was it Poseidon that unleashed her powers and caused the world to flood, or was it Imu as the sea devil? Either way, we do know that Shirahoshi is another figure that is on Imu's hit list, and now it makes sense why. We know that she not only has the powers of Poseidon, but this effectively makes her the sea god to counter Imu the sea devil. But going back to the other ancient weapons, there's also Pluton. Pluton is said to be a battleship capable of mass destruction. But again, why would the good guys need something like that? They're not going to wipe out innocent civilians, they're not going to level islands just to win a war. So maybe we've been imagining Pluton too literally. Maybe instead of a ship that blows things up, Pluton is a piece of infrastructure to protect people from a massive flood. A vessel built to hold people, to store people when land itself is disappearing. If islands are sinking and the sea keeps swallowing up nations, the world will eventually need a moving fortress, a place that can survive hostile waters, a place where devil fruit users can live safely, a base that lets physically weaker characters contribute in important ways. Honestly, I can even picture someone like Usopp operating Pluton's controls with Chopper and Frankie, turning it into a tactical command center that doubles as a warship. And Uranus fits this picture too. Often theorized to be a sky weapon, if the world is being pushed underwater, then Uranus becomes the master of the sky, the only arena, the only battlefield apart from water. We've seen this in our real-world conflicts too. While World War I primarily focused on naval warfare, the evolving technology saw a huge rise in airborne warfare during World War II. Whoever controls Uranus controls the sky, which is perhaps very worrying, seeing as it has been strongly suggested that Imu and the Gorosei may currently possess Uranus. Maybe that's what caused Joy Boy and the Ancient Kingdom to lose in the first place. Imu and the allied kingdoms got control over Uranus and therefore were able to control the sky as well as the seas. But when you put all of this together, the ancient weapons start to look less like 3 random super weapons and more like a direct response to a very specific threat of the ocean level rising. It explains why the ancient weapons coins were one of the first major artifacts of the Void Century that we were introduced to once we entered the Grand Line. It's always been very intrinsically linked to the core of the final battle. It explains why Joy Boy would preserve dangerous weapons for future generations. Not to destroy the world, but to save it. The ancient weapons being key to saving people from their flooded future. Imu being the Sea Devil and controlling the seas could also be linked to another recent mystery that has completely rocked the fanbase, the Galila Company. A band of giant shipwrights who seem to be the key to the final battle but are currently frozen. Frozen? That definitely seems like Imu's doing. Frozen is basically another form of trapping people in Imu's ocean domain. And this also recontextualizes the significance of Joy Boy being the world's first pirate, an individual who dared to stand up against the Sea Devil. In a world where everyone understood and feared Imu's domain, Joy Boy ventured into it, sailing the seas, challenging Imu in their own territory. And it also aligns perfectly with Luffy's end goal. While the specifics of Luffy's dreams hasn't been revealed yet, we know it's going to be something about freedom. Whereas Imu as a Sea Devil manipulates the oceans to maintain their dominance and control, it's extremely poignant that Luffy seeks to transform the meaning of what the seas represent. As a pirate, he views the seas as representing freedom. All of which is to say that when you take a step back and look at everything together, it feels like Oda has been setting up the stage for this final war from the very beginning. Vegapunk's warning, the rising tides, disappearing islands, the ancient weapons, Shanks' preparation, the importance of the Nika Devil Fruit, all of it keeps pointing to the same direction. And once you recognize that, Imu's goal becomes clearer. The sea-based hierarchy, attacks that not only erase islands but cause rising sea levels, it lines up with this one idea. Imu isn't just ruling from the shadows, they are reshaping the planet so that it becomes an entirely blue planet, revealing what they truly are. A sea devil, a being whose influence grows with the expanse of water. And if the world really is sinking, then the final war won't just decide who wins the throne, it'll decide who the world belongs to. The sea devil seeking to dominate the complete ocean, or the people who want to completely flip what the sea truly represents. Anyways, those are just some of my thoughts. Let me know what you think by leaving a comment below. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please like the video, share the video, and please do subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future One Piece discussions. You can also help support the channel further like these wonderful people by becoming a Patreon or channel member. But as always, thank you so much for listening to another one of my crazy One Piece ramblings. This is JoyGirl, and I'll see you again soon.